The massive hospital ship floated through the darkness of space like a white island in an endless black ocean. Red crosses painted on its hull were so large they could be seen from thousands of miles away. The ship's name, Om's Nightingale, glowed in bright letters along its side. Inside, Captain Daein Kim walked through the crowded medical halls with tired eyes. He had been awake for 18 hours straight. The ship carried over 3,000 doctors, nurses, and medical staff. In the patient wards, 5,000 wounded soldiers lay in beds, recovering from terrible injuries. Some had lost arms or legs. Others had burns covering half their bodies. Many screamed in their sleep, remembering the battles they had survived. Daein stopped at a window and looked out into space. His reflection stared back at him. He was only 35 years old, but the past 6 months had added gray to his hair. Being captain of a hospital ship was harder than commanding a warship. On a warship, you fought enemies. On a hospital ship, you fought death itself, and death won far too often. "Captain, you should rest," a voice said behind him. Dr. Myrie Park stepped up beside him, still wearing her surgical uniform. Blood stained her sleeves. She had just finished a 12-hour surgery trying to save a young pilot's life. "Did he make it?" Daein asked. Myrie nodded slowly. "He'll live. He'll never fly again, but he'll live." She wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. "That's the 14th patient this week. The fighting at the border is getting worse." Daein knew she was right. For 6 months, the Vraxian Empire had been testing human defenses along the frontier. Small battles had turned into larger ones. More wounded arrived every day. The Nightingale had become a floating city of pain and healing. "We're supposed to be protected," Myrie said quietly. "The Galactic Medical Convention guarantees it. We removed all our weapons. We broadcast medical codes on every frequency. We have the largest red crosses in the entire sector painted on our hull." "I know," Daein said. "Every civilized species in the galaxy respects medical ships. We've never had problems before." Down in the communications room, Lieutenant Ji-Won Choi sat at her station, monitoring dozens of channels at once. She was 26 years old and had joined the medical fleet because she wanted to help people. The constant stream of distress calls and casualty reports had taught her that space was far more violent than she had ever imagined. Her screen flickered. An automated message played on repeat. "This is UHM's Nightingale, hospital vessel, registry number MH7743. We operate under Galactic Medical Convention protections. We carry wounded personnel only. We are unarmed. We request safe passage through all territories." The message broadcast in 15 different languages, including Vrasian in the patient wards. Head nurse Sang-Ho Lee moved between beds with practiced efficiency. He was 52 years old and had served in 3 wars before becoming a nurse. He had seen enough violence to last several lifetimes. Now he dedicated his life to healing instead of fighting. "How are you feeling today?" he asked a young Marine named Tae-Won Kang. The boy was only 19. A plasma blast had destroyed most of his left side. The doctors had rebuilt him with artificial organs and synthetic skin, but he would carry the scars forever. "Better, I think," Tae-Won said with a weak smile. "Dr. Park says I might walk again in a few months." "Dr. Park is the best surgeon in the fleet," Sang-Ho said, checking the boy's vital signs. "If she says you'll walk, you'll walk." Tae-Won's smile faded. "Nurse Sang-Ho, do you think the war will end soon?" Sang-Ho paused. He wanted to lie, to give the boy hope. But he had never lied to a patient before, and he wouldn't start now. "I don't know, son." "I hope so." Up on the bridge, Ensign Borishin monitored the sensor displays. She was the youngest officer on the ship, fresh out of the academy. She had chosen to serve on a hospital ship because she thought it would be safer than a combat vessel. Now, surrounded by thousands of wounded soldiers, she wondered if anywhere in space was truly safe. Her console beeped. She leaned forward, studying the display. "Captain, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors." Daehan turned from the window. "What is it?" "Unknown contacts, sir. Multiple ships. They're moving fast." Bora's fingers danced across her controls. "Distance is about 2 light hours. They're headed in our direction." Daehan walked to her station. "Can you identify them?" Bora shook her head. "Too far away. Their engine signatures don't match anything in our database." "Keep monitoring them," Daehan ordered. "Let me know if they change course." Down in the medical bay, Myri had just started another surgery. A female soldier had been brought in with severe internal injuries. As Myri worked, her hands moving with practiced precision, she thought about her daughter back on Earth. She hadn't seen her in 8 months. Every day, she promised herself this would be her last tour. Every day, another wounded soldier arrived who needed her skills. "Doctor, her blood pressure is dropping," one of the surgical nurses said. Myri focused completely on her patient. Everything else disappeared. There was only the surgery, only the fight to save this one life. On the bridge, Bora's console beeped again. More urgent this time. "Captain, those unknown ships have changed course. They're heading directly toward us now." "And sir?" She looked up at him, confusion in her eyes. "They're accelerating, fast." Daehan felt ice form in his stomach. "How many ships?" "I count 23 vessels, sir. Cruiser class or larger." "Sound general alert," Daehan ordered. "Get me Admiral Malm's fleet on the emergency channel. And triple check that our medical identification codes are broadcasting on all frequencies." Throughout the Nightingale, alert sirens began to wail. It was a sound no one on a hospital ship ever wanted to hear. The Vraxian fleet emerged from the darkness like sharks circling wounded prey. Captain Daehan stood on the bridge of the Nightingale, watching the tactical display with growing horror. 23 warships had surrounded his hospital vessel. Every one of them had their weapons powered and ready. "Keep broadcasting our medical codes," he ordered Lieutenant Jiwan. His voice stayed calm, but his hands gripped the edge of his command chair. "Send them messages in every language we have. Tell them we're a protected medical vessel under the Galactic Convention." Jiwan's fingers flew across her console. "Sending now, sir. Broadcasting on all frequencies." She waited. Seconds passed. Then minutes. "Sir, they're not responding. They're not even acknowledging our hails." In the patient wards below, the alert sirens had caused panic. Wounded soldiers who couldn't walk tried to get out of their beds. Those who could walk helped those who couldn't. Head Nurse Sangho moved through the chaos, trying to keep everyone calm. "Stay in your beds," he called out. "This is just a precaution. We're a hospital ship. No one attacks hospital ships." But young Taewon Kang looked at him with frightened eyes. "Those are Vraxian ships, aren't they? I recognize the engine signatures. They're the ones who did this to me." Sangho squeezed the boy's shoulder. "We're protected by every law of civilized warfare. They won't touch us." On the bridge, Ensign Bora Shin monitored the approaching fleet. "Captain, they're moving into attack formation." "That's impossible," Daehan said. "We're unarmed. We have red crosses covering half our hull. We're broadcasting medical codes. They have to see what we are." "Sir," Jiwan said, her voice shaking, "I'm receiving a response from the Vraxian flagship." She put it on speakers. A harsh, mechanical voice filled the bridge. It spoke in broken human language. "Human vessel. You carry soldiers. You are military target." Daehan stepped forward. "This is Captain Daeun Kim of the UHM's Nightingale. We are a hospital ship. We carry wounded personnel only. We have no weapons. We are protected under Article 7 of the Galactic Medical Convention. You cannot attack us." Silence. Then the Vraxian voice spoke again. "Your laws are not our laws. Your soldiers died today. The communication cut off. Captain." Boris screamed. "They're targeting us. Energy weapons charging." Dahan had 1 second to make a decision. The Nightingale was huge and slow. It had no shields, no armor, no weapons. It was designed to heal, not to fight. Emergency evasion. Full power to engines. "Get us." The first blast hit the patient ward on the port side. The explosion tore through 3 decks. 200 wounded soldiers died instantly. The lucky ones never knew what happened. The others had time to scream. Down in Ward 7, Sangho was thrown against a wall. The entire room shook. Lights exploded. Support beams collapsed. He pulled himself up and saw Tae-Won's bed. The young Marine was pinned under debris, blood covering his face. "Hold on," Sangho shouted. He ran to the boy and tried to lift the metal beam, but it was too heavy. Tae-Won looked up at him. "It hurts, Nurse Sangho." "It hurts so much." "I know, son. I know. Just hold on. Help is coming." Another blast hit. This one struck the surgical wing. Dr. Mayray Park was still operating when her entire world exploded. The blast wave threw her across the room. She hit the wall hard and fell to the floor. When she looked up, she saw her patient was dead. The surgical nurses were dead. 3 other doctors lay scattered across the floor, not moving. Fire had started in the corner. Smoke filled the air. Mayray pulled herself up and stumbled toward the door. She had to get to the other patients. She had to save whoever she could. The corridor outside was chaos. Medical staff ran in every direction. Some were on fire. Others helped carry wounded. The emergency lighting gave everything a red glow, like they were all trapped inside a dying heart. "Mayray!" Someone shouted. It was Sangho, carrying young Tae-Won in his arms. Blood covered both of them. "The operating room," Mayray said. "We need to get him to surgery." "There is no operating room anymore," Sangho said. "It's gone. It's all gone." On the bridge, Ji-won worked frantically at her communication station. "I'm sending emergency signals to every human ship in range. Admiral Nam's fleet is 40 light years away. They can be here in 6 hours. "We don't have 6 hours," Daehin said. Another explosion rocked the ship. "We barely have 6 minutes. Bora watched her tactical display with tears streaming down her face. "They're targeting the life support systems. The medical bays. They're not trying to disable us. They're trying to kill everyone on board." Daehan felt something he had never felt before. Pure, absolute rage. These aliens weren't just attacking a military target. They were massacring the helpless. They were murdering doctors and nurses. They were killing patients who couldn't even stand up. "Ji-won," he said quietly, "I need you to make sure Earth knows what's happening here. Make sure they know the Vraxians are deliberately targeting a hospital ship. Make sure everyone knows." Ji-won understood. With shaking hands, she activated the emergency beacon. "This is UHM's Nightingale," she said into the recorder. "We are under attack by Vraxian forces. They are targeting our medical facilities. They are killing wounded soldiers. They are firing on clearly marked hospital vessels. The Galactic Medical Convention has been violated. They're killing the wounded. Please, someone help us." The bridge exploded. When Daehan opened his eyes, he was on the floor. Smoke filled the air. Fires burned at every station. Ji-won lay across her console, not moving. Dora was gone completely. He pulled himself up. The main screen still worked. He could see the Vraxian ships methodically destroying his vessel. They moved with precision, targeting each section one by one. His communications panel flickered. It was still working barely. He grabbed it and activated the ship-wide channel. All hands, abandon ship. This is the captain. Abandon ship immediately. Get to the escape pods. Move, move, move. Down in Ward 7, Myray held Taewon in her arms. Sangho had been killed by falling debris seconds ago. Now it was just her and the dying boy. "Dr. Park," Taewon whispered. Blood came from his mouth. "Tell my family. Tell them I wasn't afraid." "You're going to tell them yourself," Myray said, even though she knew it was a lie. Taewon smiled. Then his eyes closed, and he stopped breathing. Myray sat there, holding the dead boy, surrounded by fire and smoke and death. Then she heard the captain's voice ordering evacuation. She laid Taewon down gently. She kissed his forehead. Then she ran for the escape pods. Throughout the Nightingale, the survivors ran through burning corridors. Some carried wounded who couldn't walk. Others moved alone. The escape pods launched by the dozens, tiny white bubbles fleeing into space. The Vraxian fleet watched them go. Then, methodically, they began targeting the escape pods. Admiral Hyunwoo Nam was reviewing supply reports when the emergency signal reached his flagship. The bridge of the battleship Retribution went silent as the distress call played through the speakers. Every officer, every crew member, stopped what they were doing and listened. "This is UHM's Nightingale. We are under attack by Vraxian forces. They are targeting our medical facilities. They are killing wounded soldiers. They are firing on clearly marked hospital vessels. The Galactic Medical Convention has been violated. They're killing the wounded. Please, someone help us." The transmission ended with the sound of an explosion. Hyunwoo stood frozen. He was 50 years old and had served in the military for 30 years. He had seen every kind of combat. He had fought in 4 wars. He had lost friends and comrades. But never, in all his years, had he heard of anyone attacking a hospital ship. "Get me tactical analysis," he said. His voice came out cold and flat. "I want to know everything. Where they were. What happened. Everything." Intelligence analyst Yuna Kim worked frantically at her station. She pulled up long-range sensor data from monitoring stations scattered across the sector. What she found made her hand shake. "Admiral, I have visual confirmation." She put the images on the main screen. The Nightingale's last known position. Sensor logs show 23 Vraxian warships. They surrounded the hospital ship and opened fire. The bridge crew watched the sensor data replay. They saw the Nightingale trying to evade, moving too slowly. They saw the Vraxian ships target the medical base, the patient wards, the life support systems. They saw the escape pods launching. Then they saw something that made everyone go completely silent. The Vraxian ships were firing on the escape pods. "Zoom in on that section," Hyunwoo ordered. Yuna enhanced the image. The thermal signatures were clear. Medical personnel floating in space. Escape pods marked with red crosses. And Vraxian weapons targeting them deliberately, methodically destroying each one. "They're killing survivors," Yuna whispered. "They're hunting down doctors and nurses in escape pods." Someone on the bridge vomited. Another officer stood up and walked out. Hyunwoo just stared at the screen. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything so evil. How many survived? He asked quietly. Yuna checked the data. "Unknown, sir. We count 73 escape pods that managed to jump away before the Vraxians could destroy them. That's maybe 800 people out of over 8,000 on board." 800. Out of 8,000. Hyunwoo turned to his communications officer. "Get me Fleet Admiral Kyungmin and Earth Command." Priority 1. And prepare this data for transmission. All of it. It took 15 minutes to establish the connection. Fleet Admiral Kyungmin Park appeared on screen. She was 62 years old, with white hair and sharp eyes. She commanded all of Earth's military forces. Admiral Nam, this better be important. I'm in the middle of They attacked the Nightingale. Hyunwoo said. Kyungmin stopped talking. What? The Vraxians attacked the Nightingale. A hospital ship. They killed over 7,000 people. Medical personnel. Wounded soldiers. They targeted the survivors in escape pods. Hyunwoo transmitted the data. For 2 minutes, Kyungmin watched in silence. Her face didn't change expression, but her hands gripped the edge of her desk until her knuckles turned white. Do we have confirmation this is accurate? She asked. Yes, ma'am. Multiple sensor stations confirmed. We have the distress call. We have thermal imaging of them targeting escape pods. We have everything. Kyungmin was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. What's your current position? 40 light years from the Nightingale's last known location. We can be there in 6 hours. How many ships do you have? 15 warships. 3 carriers. 5 destroyers. 7 cruisers. That's not enough, Kyungmin said. She turned away from the screen, speaking to someone else in her office. Then she looked back at Hyunwoo. I'm mobilizing every available ship within 100 light years. You're going to have 47 warships by the time you reach that location. Ma'am, our intelligence suggests the Vraxian fleet has at least 3 times that number. I don't care if they have 300 ships, Kyungmin said. Her voice was like iron. They crossed a line. They didn't just attack a military target. They massacred the wounded. They murdered doctors. They killed people who dedicated their lives to saving others. That's not war. That's evil. She leaned closer to the screen. Find them, Admiral Nam. Find them and show them what happens when you mistake humanity's mercy for weakness. Show them what happens when you kill our healers. Yes, ma'am. And Hyunwoo, Kyungmin added, I'm sending you unrestricted rules of engagement. Whatever you need to do, you do it. Understood? Understood, Admiral. The transmission ended. Hyunwoo turned to his bridge crew. Every single person was watching him, waiting. Prepare the fleet for immediate departure, he said. Battle stations. Combat protocols. I want every weapon system online. I want every fighter loaded and ready. I want every Marine armed for boarding actions. His tactical officer spoke up. Sir, what are our orders when we find them? Hyunwoo looked at the screen, still showing the image of Vraxian ships firing on medical escape pods. He thought about the doctors who had died, the nurses, the wounded soldiers who had survived one battle only to be murdered in their hospital beds. When we find them, he said slowly, we're going to teach them a lesson. We're going to teach every species in this galaxy what happens when you attack the defenseless. We're going to make sure no one ever does this again. Throughout the ship, the crew prepared for war. But this wasn't like other battles. Everyone who heard the distress call, everyone who saw the sensor data, felt something change inside them. This wasn't about territory or resources or politics. This was about justice. Within 2 hours, ships began arriving. The destroyer Vengeance jumped into formation, commanded by Captain Minho Yoon. The carrier Storm appeared with 200 fighters on board. One by one, Earth's warships gathered around the Retribution. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Kyungmin released the sensor data to the public. Within hours, every human in the galaxy had seen it. The images of the Nightingale exploding. The thermal signatures of Vraxians hunting escape pods. The distress call from Lieutenant Ji-won Choi, begging for help before her transmission was cut off. Protests erupted on every human world. People demanded action. They demanded justice. They demanded revenge. But in space, 47 warships didn't wait for public opinion. They had already made their decision. Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Retribution and gave the order. Jump to hyperspace. Set course for the Nightingale's last known coordinates. All ships maintain combat formation. One by one, the warships vanished into hyperspace. They were going hunting. And when they found their prey, they would teach the Vraxian Empire a lesson it would never forget. In a medical station 50 light years away, Dr. Myrae Park sat in a recovery room. She was one of the survivors, rescued from her escape pod by a passing cargo ship. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Tawan's face. She saw Sang-ho dying. She saw her surgical team killed by explosions. A nurse came in and handed her a tablet. "Doctor, you should see this." Myrae looked at the screen. It showed Earth's battle fleet assembling. 47 ships, all heading toward Vraxian space. "They're going after them," the nurse said quietly. Myrae watched the ships on the screen. She thought about all the people who had died. Then she nodded slowly. "Good," she whispered. "Good." The Earth fleet emerged from hyperspace at the coordinates where the Nightingale had died. Admiral Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Retribution and stared at the debris field floating before them. Pieces of the hospital ship drifted in the darkness. Medical equipment, beds, bodies. "Launch recovery teams," he ordered. "Search for survivors. And document everything." Small shuttles moved through the wreckage. The crews found things that would haunt them forever. A child's toy floating in space, something a wounded soldier had kept from home. A nurse's uniform with a name tag still attached. A surgical tool still gripped in a frozen hand. They found escape pods that had been deliberately destroyed. Blast marks showed where Vraxian weapons had targeted them. Inside were the bodies of doctors and nurses who had survived the initial attack only to be hunted down and killed. Captain Woojin. Han commanded the fighter wing on the carrier, Storm. He watched the recovery operation on his screen and felt his hands clench into fists. He was 32 years old and had flown in 23 combat missions. But nothing had prepared him for this. "We're going to find them," he said to his squadron. "And when we do, we're going to make them pay for every single life they took." On the destroyer Vengeance, Commander Min-ho Yoon studied the tactical data. The Vraxian fleet had left a clear trail. They weren't even trying to hide. They thought they would face no consequences. "Admiral," Min-ho said on the secure channel, "I have their heading. They're moving toward the mining colony in the Arcturus 7 system. Intelligence suggests they're stopping to refuel." Hyunwoo looked at the star charts. Arcturus 7 was in neutral space, a major trading hub. If they engaged the Vraxian fleet there, it could cause a diplomatic incident. He didn't care. All ships set course for Arcturus 7, maximum speed. The fleet jumped to hyperspace again. Inside each ship, the crews prepared for battle. But this wasn't normal preparation. Marines like Commander Jae-sung-oh spent extra time checking their weapons. Fighter pilots like Woojin ran simulation after simulation, perfecting their attack runs. Every single person in the fleet had seen the recordings from the Nightingale. This wasn't just another mission. This was personal. 12 hours later, a cargo ship arrived at Hyunwoo's fleet. On board were the survivors from the Nightingale. 200 medical personnel who had escaped in pods before the Vraxians could kill them. Among them was Dr. Myrae Park. Hyunwoo met her in the Retribution's docking bay. She looked small and tired, wearing a borrowed uniform. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. "Admiral, I need to give you my testimony. I need to tell you what happened." They went to a conference room. Hyunwoo sat across from her with a recording device between them. "Dr. Park, can you tell me what you saw?" Mireille closed her eyes. Then she began to speak. She told him about the alert sirens, about the first blast hitting the patient ward, about her surgical theater exploding. She told him about young Taewon Kang dying in her arms, about Sangho being crushed by debris, about watching her fellow doctors burn to death. They weren't attacking military targets, she said. Her voice shook but didn't break. They were targeting the medical base specifically, the patient wards, the surgical wings. They knew exactly what they were hitting. They wanted to kill the wounded. They wanted to kill us. Yeonwoo recorded every word. When she finished, he asked, "Are you willing to testify to this publicly?" "Yes," Mireille said immediately. "The whole galaxy needs to know what they did. Every species, every government, everyone needs to see what the Vraxians are capable of." Yeonwoo transmitted her testimony to Earth Command. Within hours, it was broadcast across every human network. Mara's face appeared on screens throughout human space as she calmly, clearly described the massacre. The effect was immediate. Protests turned to demands for action. Politicians who had called for restraint now called for justice. Even neutral colonies that had stayed out of human conflicts began speaking out against the Vraxians. On the Retribution's bridge, intelligence analyst Yuna Kim worked around the clock tracking the Vraxian fleet. She identified each ship by its energy signature. 23 vessels. The same ones that had attacked the Nightingale. "Admiral, they've reached Arcturus 7, she reported. "They're docking at the main refueling station." Yeonwoo studied the tactical display. The Vraxian fleet was 3 times the size of his force. In a straight battle, he would lose, but he had no intention of fighting a straight battle. "Get me all ship commanders on conference," he ordered. Within minutes, the faces of 47 captains appeared on his screens. Minho Yoon on the Vengeance, Woojin Han on the Storm, Jae Sung-oh representing the Marine Forces. All of them waiting for orders. "Here's the situation," Yeonwoo said. "The Vraxian fleet is refueling at Arcturus 7. They outnumber us 3-1. If we engage them directly, we'll lose." He paused and looked at each face on the screen. "So we're not going to engage them directly. We're going to trap them." He pulled up a tactical map of the Arcturus system. Arcturus 7 depends on 3 things: fuel depots, supply stations, and a hyperspace relay that lets ships jump in and out of the system. Minho understood immediately. "We destroy those, and they're stuck there." "Exactly," Yeonwoo said. "Woojin, your fighters will take out the fuel depots. Fast strikes, maximum damage. Minho, your destroyers will eliminate the supply stations. I want every resource in that system gone. If they want to run, they'll have to fight their way out on empty tanks." Jae-sung spoke up. "And the hyperspace relay?" "The Retribution will handle that personally," Yeonwoo said. "Once it's destroyed, they can't jump away. They'll be trapped in normal space with no fuel and no supplies." "Admiral," one of the captains asked, "what about civilian casualties?" "Arcturus 7 is a trading hub. There are thousands of people there. We broadcast evacuation warnings 1 hour before we begin the operation," Yeonwoo said. "Anyone who wants to leave gets to leave. But the Vraxians don't get that courtesy. They didn't give our doctors and nurses any warning." The captains nodded. No one objected. "One more thing," Yeonwoo said. "When we trap them, they're going to try to surrender. They're going to claim diplomatic immunity. They're going to say they were following orders." His voice went cold. "I don't care. We're not here to take prisoners. We're here to deliver justice. The Vraxian commanders will stand trial for war crimes. Everyone else chose to follow orders that included murdering wounded soldiers and shooting medical personnel in escape pods. They made their choice." The conference ended. The fleet moved into position. 1 hour before the attack, Hyunwoo broadcast a message to Arcturus 7. This is Admiral Hyunwoo Nam of the Earth Defense Forces. In 1 hour, we will begin military operations in this system. All civilian vessels should evacuate immediately. This is your only warning. Cargo ships and trading vessels fled the system. Within 30 minutes, the station was nearly empty. Only the Vraxian fleet remained, apparently confident that Earth wouldn't dare attack them at a neutral station. They were wrong. Hyunwoo watched the countdown timer on his screen. When it reached 0, he gave the order. All ships, execute. Woojin's fighters screamed toward the fuel depots at maximum speed. They launched missiles from long range, then banked away as explosions lit up the darkness. 3 fuel depots disappeared in balls of fire. Minho's destroyers targeted the supply stations with precision strikes. Munitions exploded. Food storage burned. Water recyclers shattered. The Retribution's main guns charged and fired at the hyperspace relay. The massive structure that allowed faster-than-light travel exploded in a brilliant flash. The Vraxian fleet, refueling peacefully, suddenly found themselves trapped. No fuel to run. No supplies to sustain them. No way to escape. And 47 Earth warships surrounding them. Weapons powered and ready. Hyunwoo broadcast on all frequencies. Vraxian fleet, this is Admiral Hyunwoo Nam. You are trapped. You have 2 choices. Surrender your commanders for war crimes trial, or die where you sit. You have 5 minutes to decide. The Vraxian flagship responded within 2 minutes. A harsh voice crackled over the communications channel. Human Admiral, you have no authority here. This is neutral space. We claim diplomatic immunity under galactic law. Admiral Hyunwoo Nam stood on the bridge of the Retribution and laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Diplomatic immunity? You murdered 7,000 people on a protected hospital ship. You hunted medical personnel in escape pods. You targeted the wounded who couldn't fight back. And now you want to talk about law? He cut the laughter and his voice went cold as ice. You have 4 minutes. On the Vraxian flagship, Commander Vector consulted with his officers. They had expected Earth to file complaints with the Galactic Council, maybe impose sanctions, possibly send a strongly worded diplomatic message. They had not expected 47 warships to trap them in a system with no fuel and no escape. They're bluffing, one of his officers said. They won't attack. It would be a war crime. Vector wasn't so sure. He had studied human history. Humans could be peaceful and compassionate. They built hospitals in war zones. They rescued enemy wounded. They followed rules of war more strictly than most species. But humans also had another side. A dark side that emerged when you pushed them too far. When you hurt the innocent. When you killed the defenseless. Charge weapons, Vector ordered. All ships, prepare for combat. On the Retribution, the countdown timer reached 0. Admiral, they're powering weapons. Tactical officer reported. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. They made their choice. All ships, weapons free. Show them no mercy. Show them exactly what they showed our doctors and nurses. The Earth fleet opened fire. Captain Woojin Han led his fighter wing in first. 200 small, fast fighters swarmed the Vraxian capital ships like angry wasps. They targeted engines, weapon systems, bridge sections. Their missiles were precise, surgical, devastating. This is for the Nightingale, Woojin shouted as he launched his payload. His missiles struck a Vraxian cruiser's engine core. The ship exploded from the inside out. Commander Minho Yoon's destroyer Vengeance lived up to its name. His ship was smaller than the Vraxian warships, but faster and more maneuverable. He brought his vessel in close, too close for the enemy's large weapons to track. and systematically tore apart a Vraxian battleship with close-range plasma fire. For every doctor they killed, Minho said to his crew. For every nurse. For every wounded soldier. Make them pay. The Vraxian fleet tried to fight back. They had more ships, bigger guns, heavier armor. Under normal circumstances, they should have won. But these weren't normal circumstances. Every human pilot, every gunner, every tactical officer fought with a fury the Vraxians had never encountered. They weren't fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for justice, for revenge, for the memory of 7,000 murdered souls. Marine Commander Jae-sung-oh watched the battle from his transport ship. His Marines were loaded and ready for boarding actions, but the fleet wasn't taking prisoners. Not yet, sir, one of his sergeants said. I've never seen our people fight like this. They crossed the line, Jae-sung said quietly. They killed our healers. In every human culture, in every nation throughout our history, there are some things you just don't do. You don't kill doctors. You don't murder the wounded. You don't hunt down medical personnel trying to escape. Another Vraxian ship exploded on the tactical display. The Vraxians thought we were soft because we built hospitals instead of just letting wounded soldiers die. They thought mercy was weakness. Jae-sung shook his head. They learned today that we're merciful because we're strong. And when you abuse that mercy, when you kill those who heal instead of harm, you face the full strength we usually keep restrained. The battle raged for 3 hours. One by one, the Vraxian ships were destroyed or disabled. They tried to run, but with no fuel and no hyperspace relay, there was nowhere to go. They tried to surrender, but Hyungwoo only accepted surrender from the command staff. All other vessels, he broadcast, you followed illegal orders. You participated in a massacre. You hunted down survivors. Face the consequences. By the end, 16 Vraxian ships were nothing but debris. The remaining 7 were dead in space, engines destroyed, life support failing. Only the Vraxian flagship remained somewhat intact. Jae-sung, Hyungwoo ordered. You're up. Board that ship. Bring me Commander Vector and his senior officers, alive. Yes, sir. The boarding action was quick and brutal. Jae-sung's Marines cut through the Vraxian hull and stormed the ship. The Vraxian crew tried to resist, but they were exhausted, low on ammunition, and facing Marines who had seen the recordings of the Nightingale massacre. The Marines showed restraint, but only just. They captured Commander Vector on his bridge, surrounded by his dead officers. When they brought him aboard the Retribution, Hyungwoo was waiting. The Vraxian commander was tall, with gray-scaled skin and 4 arms. He looked at the human admiral with something close to confusion. Why? Vector asked. Why such fury over one ship? We have destroyed many of your vessels in battle. You never responded like this. Hyungwoo stepped close to him. Those were warships. Soldiers fighting soldiers. That's war. What you did to the Nightingale wasn't war. It was murder. They were military personnel on a military vessel, Vector said. They were wounded soldiers who couldn't fight, Hyungwoo said. They were doctors and nurses whose only weapons were scalpels and medicine. They were people who dedicated their lives to saving others, not killing them. He pulled up an image on a screen. It showed the Nightingale, the massive red crosses on its hull clearly visible. You saw these. You knew what they meant. Every civilized species in the galaxy knows what a red cross means. It means mercy. It means healing. It means sanctuary. He switched to another image. This one showed thermal signatures of Vraxian ships targeting escape pods. And you hunted down the survivors. Medical personnel floating in space with no weapons, no shields, no way to fight back. And you killed them systematically. Vector looked at the image. For the first time, something like uncertainty crossed his face. "We thought your medical ships were strategic targets. Destroying them would weaken your forces." "You thought wrong," Himu said. "And now you're going to stand trial. You're going to face the Galactic Council. You're going to answer for every life you took. And then you're going to spend the rest of your existence in a human prison, where you can think about the difference between war and murder." He turned to the Marines. "Take him to the brig. Keep him under guard. And make sure the entire galaxy knows we captured the commander who ordered the Nightingale Massacre." As Vector was led away, Hyunwoo returned to the bridge. The battle was over. The Vraxian fleet was destroyed. Justice had been served, but he felt no satisfaction. Only sadness for the lives lost and the innocents destroyed. "Admiral," communications officer said, "we're receiving a message from Fleet Admiral Kyungmin." Kyungmin appeared on screen. Behind her, Hyunwoo could see Earth government officials and military leaders. "Admiral Nam, the Galactic Council has issued an emergency statement. They unanimously condemned the Vraxian Empire's attack on the Nightingale. They've agreed to try the Vraxian commanders for war crimes. It's the first time in galactic history they've acted this quickly." "Good," Hyunwoo said. "There's more," Kyungmin continued. "The Vraxian Empire has sued for peace. Unconditional peace. They're offering reparations, territory concessions, everything. They want the war to end immediately." Hyunwoo wasn't surprised. The galaxy had seen what happened when you pushed humanity too far. When you killed their healers. When you murdered the defenseless. "Accept their surrender," he said. "But make sure the treaty includes protections for medical vessels. Real protections. Any species that attacks a hospital ship faces immediate human military response." "Already done," Kyungmin said with a small smile. The council agreed to it. No one wants to face what the Vraxians just faced. The transmission ended. Hyunwoo looked at his bridge crew. They were exhausted, covered in sweat and smoke. But they were alive, and they had delivered justice for those who couldn't fight back. "Take us home," he ordered. 3 weeks later on Earth, a memorial ceremony was held for the Nightingale. 7,200 names were read aloud, one by one. It took 18 hours. Dr. Myrae Park stood in the crowd, wearing her dress uniform. Beside her stood Captain Daein Kim, recovered from his injuries. Throughout the crowd were the other survivors, 200 souls who had lived through hell. When the ceremony ended, they unveiled a new hospital ship, the UHMS Nightingale II. It was twice the size of the original, with the most advanced medical facilities in human space, but this time, it came with an escort. 6 warships would travel with it at all times. The message was clear. Earth would continue to heal the wounded and care for the sick. But anyone who tried to stop them would face the consequences. Captain Daehem was given command of the new Nightingale. At the christening ceremony, he spoke to the crowd. "We are healers," he said. "We are builders. We are explorers. We choose mercy over violence. We choose compassion over cruelty. We choose to save lives instead of taking them." He paused and looked at the escort warships floating nearby.